All right, y'all, we're back for another episode of season 2. It's one of the last 2 of the season, and I have been quite excited about chasing down, locking in, having this woman on my podcast. Her answer was yes from day one, but it's just about letting the stars align and getting this busy powerhouse on this podcast. So I am so excited about being almost to the end of season 2, because as we know in the podcast world, that is a triumph in itself. So I want to say thank you to my supporters, my critics, my listeners, my laughers, my shit talkers, and especially the people all around the globe listening, and my guests for coming on, being amazingly powerful women that are telling their unapologetic stories of where they are in their current state in life. And as you know, this podcast is all about taking the story that we're supposed to tell as women, throwing it out the window, and telling our unapologetic story the way we want to tell it, in our own time, in our own words. Y'all, and trust and believe me, this woman is walking all the way in her truth. Let's talk. Warning, in this podcast, there is cursing and adult content.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Sherhara. I am 36 years old, okay? Capricorn's in the house. I am a Capricorn, mighty Capricorn. And my goal today is to connect with every single person listening. No matter when you're listening, my goal is that we connect, that you and I feel like we best friends. All of your listeners. So yes, that's my goal for today. And you are listening to LaRae Infinity Let's Talk Podcast Season 2.
Season 2, baby. And I'm the host, Legina. Let's talk. All right, Sherhara. So I remember the day I met you. We went to a Kim Roxy event.
Right.
And it was networking hour, and you sat down next to me and faced me, gave me eye contact, and just wanted to know what I was doing. And I found you to be a very it was insightful. It was one of those moments that it was very memorable, because not a lot of people at a networking event are trying to hear about other people. They're trying to network outward. And I was new to the city. I just met you, and we very much were just talking about entrepreneurial journeys and networking and positive networking. And in the moment, I remember us talking about that we wanted to connect and see each other. And that happens a lot in networking events, especially back in the day in person. And so I just really appreciate the fact that we did connect, and that you are a genuine person and a goal friend. And y'all, I have to tell you that Sherhara is the originator of goal friend. So when you hear me say that, and I'm like, yeah, a friend had told me that this, and the other, I say goal friend. Sherhara is the woman that came up with goal friends, and we definitely are that. So I just want to welcome you to the show, and I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much. You know what? I remember that day like it was yesterday when we were trying. I think we were trying to figure out where all the snacks were too. They had some juice or something like that. They were giving out. So no, I do. I definitely remember that day, and I think that when you reference networking events back in the day when it was in person, sometimes they can really be a lot of fluff. And I think that it's up to the individuals, and it's up to you to determine the type of value you get out of it. So for me, I always try to make a real connection with at least one or two people at every networking event that I go to. And you were the one.
The one, Hunty, the one. Where'd you grow up?
Ooh, so I grew up here in Houston, Texas till I was about 9. And then after that, I moved to the Midwest. My parents separated and I moved to Northwest Indiana, Hammond, Indiana. Most people are familiar with Gary, Indiana, where hails from Michael Jackson. So, right next door to Michael Jackson. So, so most of my formative years, my youth years were in Indiana. And then after that, I moved to Chicago for 13 years. And almost 3 years ago, I've returned back to where I penetrated this realm. I'm the oldest. I have a younger brother. He just turned 30 this year. He's super dope. I'm like really proud of just who he is and his growth and his expression of his, professional ability. He's an artist, so he's just dope. So and then yeah, my parents, they separated, but they actually are pretty cool, like
Wow.
we do family stuff. Like we just had the holidays and my mom and my dad come over. They sit in the same room and chill and talk to each other like regular people. Oftentimes, if you meet my parents in the same room or at an event or something like that, you may think that they're still together because they're so cordial to one another. My mom has funny side comments, like I had some plates that my dad gave me.
Uh-huh.
And when they came over for Christmas, she was like, "Oh, these plates look familiar." And like I didn't know that these were plates that I had when I was a kid, She's like, "These plates look familiar." And I was like, "Oh yeah, my dad gave them to me." And she turned and looked at my dad and she was like, "Oh, so you didn't throw these away?" And I was like, "Oh dang, I didn't know it was drama like that, And then he looked at me like, "Come on." And then he looked at my mom, "Come on, Elise, like I wouldn't throw away the plates, Anyways, so they do have some moments where I'm like, "Oh, so y'all been through some stuff." But otherwise, I'm extremely blessed and I think lucky to have parents who were separated. But my mother never, even though when we moved, my mother never like said anything bad about my dad. She made sure that so oftentimes when I was younger, I would spend still a lot of time here in Houston because any break, any 5-day, 4-day weekend, she put us on the plane and we'd be here in Texas with my dad. So I guess she was more so like, your dad is capable and I need a break. So y'all getting up out of here. So,
Yes.
so yeah.
And then when you were in Chicago, okay, so Chicago is one of my favorite cities ever. Did you go to college in Chicago or what did you do there?
I went to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. For those of you, I have on my Indiana sweatshirt right now. It's kind of like my uniform when I don't feel like wearing nothing else. I just put this sweatshirt on. Okay, I'm like, I should have got some more college sweatshirts. I mean, I can still buy some. But anyways, the point is, no, I went to Indiana University and then I decided after college, I moved to Chicago because I had some experience in Chicago because I used to dance. And so I would take all my classes and whatnot in Chicago throughout middle school and high school. So I was like, oh, I'll just move to Chicago. But let me tell you something. Chicago is a beautiful city.
Mhm.
I enjoyed my time there. I honestly would say I don't think there's any better skyline than Chicago skyline, especially like driving around the city. You always have just an amazing view. It sits on a lake. There's beaches. I mean, it's just the best. But them winters, no
Baby.
way, Jose. So I am eternally grateful that I have returned home here to Houston. And I pulled the best thing. I'm not gonna say the best thing that came out of Chicago, but one of the best things that came out of Chicago are my fur coats. Okay. My fur coats, I absolutely love. And here in Houston, I say as soon as it hits 50 degrees, I'm pulling out my fur. I have my fur on today.
What's something that's impacted your life?
I would definitely say I'm very much in the present type of person. I could go back, but honestly, me moving back to Houston, I know we've kind of talked about this, but me moving back to Houston is what has impacted my life in such a beautiful way.
Mhm.
My spirit feels at home. And I think that was a feeling that was fleeting for all of my life. When I moved from Houston, I just never felt like I belonged in Indiana. I never felt like that was home. I appreciate, the neighborhood I grew up in, but it never felt like home. I have no ever desire to return. And then moving to Chicago, that never felt like home, even though I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I moved back 3 years ago when I was 33, and it's such a beautiful thing to be so happy to be at home.
Yeah.
And I never really had that experience. And I feel like that's impacted my life in a way that I did not know how fulfilling it was going to be. I thought maybe I would come back and then enjoy it a little bit, but then maybe start still wanting to seek another place to live for experience. But now I'm like, I totally have a preference. I don't want to live anywhere else. So that's impacted me in a way that I never anticipated.
Yeah.
And it's grounded me, it's healed me, it's restored me, it's expanded me. And now I just feel there's a great philosopher. He goes by the name, he said, I ain't got no worries. I ain't got no worries. His name is Lil Wayne. Okay.
Oh, I was about to say, look me in this face. I ain't got
Yes,
no worries.
worries, right. And if that ain't me, and now that I've moved back here to Houston, like I ain't got no worries. My dad always says, he's like, now all I need is a million bucks to go with my stellar attitude. And so that literally, I think for me, has impacted me the most in my most recent experience of life. And I feel like it's the impact of me returning back to Houston is still vibrating. It's multiplying. So the impact is what I feel now, but I feel like this impact, it's like the aftershocks are still occurring. And I feel like they're going to continue to occur because I'm in a place that I'm thriving in. It's like it's the right element for me.
Because as a military brat, and as somebody that always has this overwhelming need to leave and move and change, Houston feels like home to me too.
Oh yes, I got goosebumps when you said that. And,
it does. It just feels so good here.
Yeah, and I meet so many other people who say the same thing about Houston. And granted, you attract what you are. So I'm also going to attract people who have the same type of sentiments towards Houston as I do.
What was like that thing that made you leave Chicago?
Ooh, girl, now we can get to the tea. We can get to the tea now. Let me tell you. Okay, so what really, I was longing to want to leave Chicago. Like, even though I enjoyed it, I always wanted to live somewhere else. That was kind of always a thing. But after, basically, I got married at 22, about to turn 23. And then I was with my former husband for almost 16 years.
What?
Up until the time that I moved here to Houston. Okay. So April of 2018, I moved here. I was still married. And then December of 2018 is when we finally got a divorce. But it was really me coming back to Houston was just because I was just done with Chicago. Like, even when I was, even in the good years of my marriage, I would talk to my former husband and say, like, well, when we gonna move, or are we gonna live somewhere else? Like, but he had such strong ties to the city. That was that's where he penetrated the realm. Like that's his home. He loved Chicago. So I think he had desire to want to move, but I don't think that we would have ever moved. And so I just think that my spirit knew that Chicago was not where I needed to be, the city itself. And then my spirit eventually was calling for me not even to be in that marriage either.
Yeah.
And then I eventually found the courage to depart the marriage. So, when you talked about that first question, like, what's impacted your life, I was going to reference the divorce, but that's such a divorce carries such negative energy.
Right.
And, and so the return home for me is a much more, positive spin on impact, but yeah, girl. So I was married for quite some time. We were together for a long time. When I met him, I had 2 weeks left of high school, and, we dated all through college. And, when I finished college, that was the reason why I ended up going to Chicago. And we were together for a long time. And then I just was like, I got to go. This is not where I need to be. So I initiated the divorce, and I just wanted to be out where I wanted to be.
Okay, so this is interesting to me because as somebody that is 35 and single, and like probably the longest relationship, if I really stretch it and like don't add in the gaps of time, the longest I've probably ever been with somebody's like 3 years ish. So in a long, y'all should see her face. She's like, "Oh, child,
3 years, that's it."
Okay, so just that being said, what was your favorite part about being in like a long-term relationship or being married? Because right now we're millennials and we're getting married later and later, or we're getting married right out of college and high school. I've been seeing it, and there's been these long marriages. Like some of my friends have already been married for like a decade plus.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your favorite thing about being married?
My favorite thing about not necessarily even being married, but being in relationship with him, my former husband, was we were extremely compatible. Like, so my favorite thing in that is we kind of always were on the same page with things. We threw the best parties, like the best parties. We had our connection was really just the life and the energy that we had. He had it, I had it. But I think that it was also to a certain demise as well, because there were certain times where I felt like I always had to be on with him and I never could just relax. And as I started getting older, it's like, no, I'm turn up queen, but I want to read a book right now. And so, and then when I didn't want to turn up, it became a thing. And I think that my personality and my energy, I became a trophy wife in a way, not in the way that people traditionally think about it, but it's like, there was a lot of benefit to me being on. So that became a bit exhausting. However, I would say that was also the part that I enjoyed the most about being in relation with him. He was smart, he was driven, he was a leader. And so I never really had to, I didn't doubt anything. He posed to me no real red flags, as people would say. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the relationship. But, oftentimes we look for red flags in others as to whether or not we should stay in a relationship. And we don't do enough searching for our own red flags, for the things that our own spirit are, what the challenges that we have, the resistance that we have. Those are our own red flags. And if you have your own red flags that are telling you to not be in a relationship, then you need to listen to those even more than you do for watching out for other people's red flags. So, and in marriage, I think I'm still, understanding what the joys and what the benefits are, and so, but I think it's more so about who you're in partnership with and the mutual experiences that you want to create together. And I think that if you can be in a space with someone and you have the same type of desires for how you want to live and how you want to experience life, and you're committed to that with another person, and you can trust that other person is going to help you and you're going to help them, I would say that that's probably going to be what I enjoy the most when I get married again. Because sis wants to get married again. I want to do it again.
You are listening to the LaRae Infinity Let's Talk podcast. That's LRI Let's Talk on Instagram and Facebook. So what's something that you have fabulously failed at?
Ooh, fabulously failed at. That's a good question. I'll say this because for so long, I've never looked at what didn't get done as failure, that it's hard for me to look at failures. Like I so quickly reposition my perspective on expectations that I never feel like I've failed. So fabulously failing is life in general. It's like everything is a sort of a failure depending on our expectations. My marriage could be a fabulous fail because it's led me to where I am today. Or was it really a failure just because it didn't meet forever? Is that the only piece of measurement that equates a successful marriage? if you remove that metric, I had a very successful marriage. There were great times and then there were bad times and then it was done. But it
Mhm.
was successful because we did a lot of really awesome stuff. So how was that really a failure?
Mm.
You know, if you're a Christian and you believe that it should last forever, then yeah, that was a fabulous fail because I'm here today. But so the way that I look at things is, I don't really ever feel like I fail. I don't fail. I've never failed. Are there things that I've wanted to do? Did I meet my quarterly goals? Revenue goals for last quarter? No. But did I fail? No. I went to Turks and Caicos.
Right.
So so I don't fail.
I like that. Yeah. I think of failure, when we're talking about taking that restriction off the word, I think that, we're so aware of everything now, that the resistance from the word failure, it comes with the negative connotation to it. But when I think of failure, I'm like, yeah, I fail a lot. And that's fine because I also learn from it, grow from it. It becomes a transformative time. Like I usually fail at least 5 times a day. But it's also like those words of rejection and negativity. And my dad used to our Sundays used to be called white days because everything Black has a negative connotation to it. And so that word association and removing that word association. But I like your perspective on it. Like I fail all the time, but I also don't think that failing is a negative thing because a lot of the times that I failed, it's brought a level of humility to me that I may have not known that I needed because I consider myself a pretty humble person. But then in those moments, I'm like, well, fuck.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I consider also in that space of failure, and that's the reason why I use the word expectation, is did you honor your word? Right? If you say that you were going to do something and you didn't do it, then to me, I would consider that to be a failure. And I feel like that's where I have a lot of failures. And that's a goal for 2021 is to be true to my word and to honor my word. So if I say that I'm going to do something, then I need to do it. And I need to be disciplined and diligent and follow through on what I say I'm going to do. Upholding commitments. And this for me is about integrity. I would definitely say, as I'm thinking about it, I am growing in my integrity. I am growing in my honor. I am growing in being a trustworthy person. And I haven't always been that. And I predicated it on being a free spirit that, it's okay for me to be aloof. It's okay for me to, cancel on last minute or, say that I'm going to be somewhere and actually be somewhere else, things like that. I don't want to carry those traits anymore. So on a day-to-day basis, if I'm not operating from a space of integrity and honoring my word and being honest, then those are failures for me because it's negating the growth and me evolving into the woman that I desire to be.
And it's hard to show up and it's hard to be a person of integrity. It's draining, especially when it's a practice.
Yes. And especially when when a lot of the habits that you hold are the things that negate you from being a person of integrity. Like if you operated a certain way for 5-10 years and you want to now start operating differently, there's a mindset, there's a way of thinking, there are habits that you have to let go in order to to evolve and become this person that you desire to be. So really take a look at what are the things that you do. So now I'm like, I just don't put myself in situations where I feel like I have to lie. Nope, just don't even be in the situation. I like you said, I try not to overcommit. And it's really about being self-aware, but like you said, it can be tough to kind of show up. But those are the moments that if I were to look at my failures, it's whenever I don't honor my word.
Yeah. Okay. So would you rather be, this is one of my favorite questions. That's why I'm grinning. I've asked it every season to every person. Would you rather be crazy rich or deeply in love?
Ooh, I would rather be crazy rich.
Yes. Come through. Tell us why.
Because
Hold on. Tell us why and put a price on it. How much? What is crazy rich?
Crazy Rich, I own the world. You're like, I own the world.
I can't stand you.
In fact, that was like my first
You're like,
thought, like, I
everything.
own the world, like Pinky in the Brain, like, yeah, I own the world. That means I would be like the richest person in the world. But real talk, like price tag, I mean, definitely hundreds of millions of dollars. Like there's absolutely no limit. Like if I wanted to, tell Elon Musk I want that spaceship to get to wherever we going, I got the money to do that. Whatever the most expensive thing is, I have the money to do it. But I say to be crazy rich because there's so many experiences that are full of love. And I've had such deep connections with people
Mm-hmm.
and exchanges with people that maybe the love wasn't forever, but it was deep and it was real. And why again, this metric of things having to last forever, I think, is what I'm challenged with sometimes.
Yeah.
And but to be rich, to be crazy rich, stupid, dumb, fat rich, like I think that would open up more opportunity for me to live fully, like, and deeply, and experience deeply, like to go to the tops of mountains and to walk into cultures and to meet people and to be able to give to people, to create experiences for other people, like that type of richness. I think that I would expand in such a way that to like, it's like an energy field. Like if I was that rich, I could absorb so much and then be able to give to people and create other experiences for people, like, people to make other people's dreams come true. Like you want to go to college, you need a house, create companies that honor people, that celebrate people, like.
Oh, so you're saying I would get a check for the us space?
Yeah, you would get whatever you want, baby. Like I would give everybody, like, to me, that's the charge I get. That's that excites me, and along the way of being filthy rich, stupid, fat, dumb rich, like you're gonna love because that is that's how we're programmed, and I'm gonna love, so I definitely think that whether you're rich or whether you're poor, you're gonna love, so you might as well do it rich.
Yes.
I need a desire to carry me through spaces. So what is that desire? Is the desire, is it, I don't think I have a desire to be in love just to be in love for love's sake.
Yeah.
The love should be expressed through the experiences that we have together.
Yeah. And that is an adult thought process, and that has no age on it, but it's adult, right? Because a lot of times, and I'll say it, I see friends and it's like, you love being in love and you want to be in love. And I can even say I love being in love, but was it love? Or were you just loving being in
love?
Right.
Really, we say the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm vibing with you. I'm like, that's 100%. I'm like, yeah, girl. Okay. So we're talking about love and being in love and loving love and all this shit. Do you consider yourself a sexually enlightened person?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I definitely. Okay. If we gonna talk about this real quick,
Let's talk about
I need everybody, whoever is listening, to go listen to Jasmine Sullivan's new album, Hotels.
Okay.
And when I tell you, her whole album gives me this, it's a conversation about her experiences through sex and love, but challenging the status quo, right? And she has these interludes that sound very like Miseducation, Lauryn Hill, Miseducation, Lauryn Hill.
I will
How
fall out. Are you serious?
she has these interludes where she calls them, hold on, let me see. She calls them the Donna's Tale, Tale, right? So
Mhm.
it'll be like Sherhara's tale
Mhm.
and Legina's tale, and they're basically short accounts of these experiences in love, whether they were caught up, however they, whatever it was. And there's the opening tale that I absolutely love is she's based, the girl is telling her story. She was like, it's crazy that men and their egos have a hard time with women being sexual beings too. And she says this one thing that took me out, and she's like, but it's our fault too, because we've been telling them that the pussy is theirs when in actuality it's ours. And I was like, girl, she took me to church on that.
Take me to church.
And so the whole album is great. I absolutely love it because I definitely feel that there's songs in her album that directly coincide or correlate with seasons I've had in my womanhood and my sexuality. She's got a song, Bodies on Bodies on Bodies on Bodies. And she's talking about basically a time period where I think she may have got out of a relationship and she just fell into just hooking up, having sex with random men. She said, what's this in my cup? And I, next thing she woke up, I don't know where I'm at and who I'm with, and she was like, luck has been on my side. And I'm just like, whoa, girl, you talking to me? Because Lord knows.
You talking my language.
Lord knows, okay? I have, and I'm just going to keep it real, I have an absorbent amount of men that I've had sex with. Right. And I think it's tough for women to even admit, like, I got bodies on bodies on bodies. Like, I don't know how I'm saying this as a joke, but it may be for real. I don't know how many men, how many people are on an NFL team or a roster, but whatever it is, just times that maybe by 3.
Same.
Like, and I think that that's a very difficult thing for women to be able to admit to these days.
Yeah, it is.
And I know it's difficult because it's difficult for me to share that, like in fear of whatever judgment or whatever, but it is what it is. And I know if I ain't the only one. No. So, but from that experience, it's like, I've learned so much about my relationship with my sexuality. Yeah. But I also know that there's still so much to learn about my sexuality as well.
Yeah, because when you're talking about her album, it's almost exactly what we're doing here. Like, the whole point of this is, imagine she spoke about that one time she produced this album and a whole bunch of women all of a sudden have this safe zone and this permission to talk about it. Why should I feel bad that I don't know my body count?
Girl, me neither. I stopped keeping count.
I stopped keeping count. And then some of them I'm like, damn, I got it. Like, if the womanly thing is don't have sex with so many guys before you get married, that's not fair, because some of the guys are fucking, like, you're like, really? I have to count that? Like, that's, and I have to be shamed if I get over this number, but over 90% of them weren't that good. That's some baby back bullshit.
Girl, because I did not counted a few of them. I was like, nah, that don't count.
That don't count. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that first one, I'm like, nah, that there's no way.
You did. Yeah, that's what you did. You was like, nah.
It's like this. Look. Oh. Wait, what?
Yeah, I don't know. Nah, that don't count.
Okay. So, okay. Are you working from home, whether it's because of the pandemic, or you're a contractor, or you have a home office, and you want a place where you can just plug into people, network, build a community, and just get work done? Well, join the Us Space for our free virtual co-working day, The Plug, every Thursday from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time. You can sign up by visiting www.theuspace.com or visit us on Instagram at LRI The Uspace. We hope to see you this Thursday at The Plug. All right, y'all, back to the episode. Enjoy the listen. Is there something in your past that you have gone through or witnessed that you really don't like talking about?
Gone through or witnessed in my past that I don't really like talking about. No, not really. I'm definitely pretty candid about my experiences because I don't feel like, of course there's trauma and of course there's healing, right? But it has not, my experiences have not been so bad that it overshadows, me operating as a human day to day.
Yeah.
And some of the things if I don't share, it's only for the privacy of others.
Right.
If especially if it's like mutual experiences. And, if it's just me, then yeah, I have no problem kind of just being an open book. But the experiences that include other people, I do use a greater level of discernment and judgment and talking about those things publicly, because it's not just my story, it's somebody else's too. It includes, or it may include, other people too. And so I do like people to have the opportunity to explore those situations on their own, just completely on their own. So there aren't many, honestly, though, that I don't necessarily that I have a hard time talking about. One being, so let's talk about maybe some of the typical ones that women have a hard time talking about or wanting to share. Abortions. I've had two. Boom. One when I was in high school, and then one in my early 20s. So okay, check. Let's move that one. What's another thing that women typically have, or people typically have a hard time talking about? Maybe sexual abuse, right? Maybe you've been raped, or maybe you've been abused by a family member. Mine came, what was this? I was still in high school, and I was out with friends, and the typical thing happened: drinking, waking up in the bed, and here I am being touched and licked on. And the next thing you know it's like, and I didn't even tell any of my friends. It was one of those things where I was like, oop, that happened. All right, keep it moving.
Yeah.
But I didn't have these extreme, like, I didn't carry the baggage of violation. Like, there were certain things that my experience and how I responded to some of these things are just different. And I don't know if it's just because I compartmentalize and, that went in a box, I shut it and I just didn't go back to it. Or maybe a space of denial. But those are two things that I think a lot of people will have a hard time just openly talking about. But for me, I'm just like, fuck it. But that's because of the journey that I've been on. So there aren't many things that I challenge myself to talk about the hard things, to bring up the hard conversations. And then I always feel so much better after I've, mustered up the courage to finally say it, like, whoo, mustered up the courage to mention, I got a lot of bodies. I got a lot of notches in my belt. I've been with a large number of men. That's a hard thing to admit. Just admitted the number of abortions that I've had. Just admitted that I, have been sexually assaulted, but when you do those things, sometimes it's like, whew, okay.
Yes.
I said it.
Especially when you're with somebody, like, even in a one-on-one setting like this, we're similar in the fact that, like, I'm like, fuck it. I just got to say it. Even going back and listening to some of these podcasts, I'm like, yeah, that you do have to be unapologetic to be on this podcast. And it's one of those things. But as soon as I say it, just like you say, it's so crazy how the other person already has something or says something too. I have never been sexually assaulted, God bless, but there have been precarious situations where if I think about it, how do we define sexual assault? I was abused in college. Like I was in a abusive relationship, and even remembering it, it's like, as you remember, it's like, did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so I question myself a lot too. Like, is that compartmentalized, and did I not deal with it, or is it one of those things? I give myself a lot of credit and praise for being able to talk about it so other people can talk about it that may have taken that moment and it turned them dark, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, I went through my moments definitely when I was like, fuck, like I'm in this, like why am I here? And I couldn't figure it out. But I feel like every life experience I've had has made me more of an empathetic and an understanding person to the point where people are able to talk to me, because I don't have a lot of judgments to give, because I either know so many people that have been through it, or I've been through it, or I've done it wrong, so wrong, and fabulously failed at it, that it's like, fuck it, yes, this is me. Like, take it.
And I also don't mind sharing, certain things publicly, because if you have the experience, or if you have the opportunity to relate with me personally, then I'm pretty forthcoming. So me telling you certain things, or now your listeners hearing certain things, I'm not shocking anyone, because these are things that I've also shared in my personal conversations, wine nights with girlfriends, and real talk conversations at events and things like that, So, I've also, that this is where it's moving, going back to that space where you're talking about being a woman of integrity, and, I think the skeletons in the closet and the things that we try to keep hidden are the very things that, break us from being, women of integrity, so, and at the end of the day, real recognize real too. So, we can see and sense things from one another. So there's no need for me to try to hide everything.
Yeah, facts. What is something that you like about yourself?
God, I love so much about myself. I love so much about myself. I love so much about myself. I'm gonna tell you one thing that I recently started liking a whole lot more about myself.
Okay, please do.
My dimples. Okay.
Wait, that hasn't been a top 100 from the beginning of your life?
No. Like, I think that they've gotten better since I've gotten older, because when I was a kid, when I was in high school, yes, I used to always get complimented on them, but I feel so silly saying that that's what it is.
No, okay, so y'all, real quick. So I'm looking at her right now. I'm looking at Sherhara, and I'm like, her dimples are like classic. So like, if somebody has some really fat cheeks, imagine these cheeks, and then push right at the, like, I have dimples that are like around my smile, but hers are on her cheeks, like those classic dimples. She has dimples.
Right. And so what's crazy about them is I feel like I get more compliments on them now than when I was, than when I was younger, because I think sometimes you think about dimples and you think about cute kids, right? Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden you forget that if you had them as a kid, you probably have them as an adult too, right? Mm-hmm. And so now that I'm an adult, like, people are just mesmerized by them. And I'm like, really? Like, they're like, oh, I just love your dimples. I just love them. And then I get like little old white ladies want to just squeeze my cheeks. And I think it's just because it may seem like an anomaly for an adult to have them. Mm. And then I started seeing people getting surgeries trying to get dimples. And yeah, and I'm just like, whoa, you know what? Thank you, God, for blessing me with dimples. So I definitely have been loving them more now. Not that I ever didn't like them, but it's just one of them things, like, I know I could charm somebody, just smile, and they like, oh, you're so cute. And I know it's because of the dimples.
It's the dimples.
It's the dimples.
So what's something that you wish you liked about yourself?
It was something that I wish that I liked about myself. Okay, so I got to work backwards with that, right? So I got to think about, what do I complain most about myself? I wish that I liked, so it's got to be something that already exists about myself that I don't like. And now I got to wish that I like it. So what is it that I don't like about myself?
Or you could even go from the level of something that you've been trying to work on to get to, and maybe the reality is that you don't like it because of that.
Okay, so what's the hard one? I don't know. I got a lot of self-worth and self-esteem. This is tough. So I would say, again, this is kind of trivial, but this is definitely one thing that, um, and I was talking to my girlfriend about this yesterday. I just wish I was more disciplined.
Mm,
And I'll give the example of, which I'm kind of proud of myself this week. This week I started getting in bed at like 9:30 to 10 o'clock so that I
what?
can be asleep by like 10:30, 11, because I want to get up at 6 o'clock every morning. And I'm not a morning person. So I wish I was a morning person, right?
Mm,
So I wish I was a morning person. But why am I not a morning person? It's because I'm not disciplined. I wish I was more disciplined. What could make me a morning person is to be more disciplined. And I wish I was more disciplined. So this week I'm trying to be more disciplined, which is why I've been trying to get in bed, at least getting in bed by 9:30 to 10 o'clock, so that I would find myself falling asleep by 10:30 or 11, after reading or scrolling through the gram.
mm.
And so this week, I think it was both Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I got up at like 5:50. I was waking up before my alarm would even go off because I was going to sleep earlier. And so but it's an active discipline. So I'm not a morning person. So I have to be more disciplined in order to wake up in the morning. And then my girlfriend was like, well, Shahara, like, if you're not a morning person, why are you pressuring yourself to be a morning person? Figure out ways how to adjust for yourself. And I said, true, but I want to be more productive. And she's like, but Shahar, you're really kind of productive. I'm like, okay, let's get this straight. I'm like a C plus to maybe a B minus of productivity of myself.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to say I want to be an A at productivity. Let me get to at least a B plus. Like I think there's room for me to be a bit more tactful,
Mhm.
getting things done. There's room for me to be a bit more, like, to be more disciplined and to complete tasks. Sometimes I don't complete tasks. I eventually get it done, but I need to get them done sooner
Yep.
if I want to really grow and scale. So for me, I wish I was more disciplined.
I love how you just worked backwards to find the root of it, because that is literally like where you shine. And I just saw you work through your communication skills. That was dope. Is there somebody who inspires you?
There's somebody that inspires me in business. Her name is Letitia Bird. And she totally inspires me in business. I don't know what she be doing. She lives in Charlotte. I don't know what she be doing in the day, but girl, she be getting so much. She's doing so much. She just released a journal. I think she sold like 800 copies in the first, like 2 weeks or something like that. And we met maybe just 2 years ago, and she was in a totally different place in business. And like her business is multiplied, right?
Mhm.
And I'm just like, I need to be doing whatever Letitia is doing. So she inspires me when it comes to business. When it comes to like growth and free thinking, I have another girlfriend, Chanel Cooper Sykes. She has just evolved, and we've been best friends since about like 2007-ish. And she's evolved, and she's reinvented herself so many times. And she and I were talking about how many lives have we lived just in this one conscious life.
Mm.
And we've lived multiple lives in this one life that we're aware of, right? That we're completely conscious in.
Yeah.
And like they talk about cats having 9 lives. I think there's been nine different iterations of who she is. She's still her in total. But like there was the Brooklyn age when I lived in that woman apartment. You were a type of person during that time period. It was that Chicago me, And then I started looking at myself. I was like, ooh, what are the different iterations of myself, So she inspires me to continuously evolve and courageously seek self, and then manifest who you believe you found in the way that you show up in life. And so she inspires me in that way. Yeah. So I would say those are like 2 people that, when I reference who I am and what I do, those are probably two of my guides. And I would also say my dad inspires me too, because he is a extremely charismatic and interesting person. And any of my friends, they're always like, "Your dad is so cool. He's so charming." Like, and I'm like, God, is there anybody that he does not just get to have them fall in love? Like, he literally is like, I've never met a stranger. And for me, I admire that. And I hope that I have, or I'm working to have the same type of positive outlook on life that he has. And he's 78. So, like, he definitely, like, so he's definitely an inspiration too.
Who do you hope to inspire?
There's a thing that I say in business, and not only just in business, but in life. My goal is to make human interaction effortless. Like, the way that we interact with each other should just be a thing of ease. And because I interact with people with such ease. Like, I think the other question that you asked me, what's one thing I like about myself, and you said I just opted to go with the dimples thing, but I also I feel so blessed and privileged, and I'm just so grateful that my ability to connect with people and to communicate with people, it is pretty effortless. And there are very few people that I'm not able to connect with, that I'm not able to, build some type of rapport or be able to communicate with. So, the people that I want to help the most are the people that feel like they're having a hard time being able to express themselves and connect with other people. Because I think that's the magic of this human existence, is our ability to interact with other humans. It's kind of like a cool thing. Like, we got these beings and we're all here. Like, how are we interacting with one another? And we're energy, and to be face to face and in communion with these balls of energy, it's like we're just balls of just energy. And when we come together, our energy gets bigger. It's like superpowers, like I really feel that is a powerful thing when you can connect with someone. And, people talk about vibe. Like, a vibe is such a powerful thing. That means you all are in alignment, like, so those people who have a hard time expressing themselves and connecting with people, that's who I hope to help. And I hope to encourage and empower people who do have, a easy time expressing themselves and connecting with people. I hope that I encourage them to do it even more boldly, So I would say just making human interaction effortless. So if you feel as if you interacting with the world and the people around you is a challenge, then I would hope that I'm helping those people or inspiring those people.
One thing that we are growing into as women is this self-care, right? A lot of self-care, identifying it, naming it, being about it, being unapologetic about doing it. So what do you do for self-care right now?
As you were saying that, I'm like, damn, I'm so tired of this whole self-care movement. It just kind of it's like, oh Lord, but it's so important. And I think the reason why it is such a big thing is because it hasn't been a predominant thought, especially for Black women, to take care of ourselves. Because ain't nobody else doing it for us. Nobody's aiding in our support of self-care. But for me, the next level of self-care, or the thing that I take personally when it comes to this idea of self-care, is not self-care. It's self-aware. And I feel like being self-aware is even more an active process of being able to heal self. Is to be self-aware. What are you aware of? What are the habits? What are your limiting thoughts? What are your limiting beliefs? What are you telling yourself? Like, the self-care, I think, is the surface aspect of being good to yourself. But being self-aware is when you really get into that next level of holistic healing. and holistic care on a daily basis. For me, that is what strengthens my self-awareness, so that when I step now into places, I know I researched myself for the day.
Oh, I like that. Researched yourself for the day. That is dope.
Girl, I just came up with that. I didn't
Okay. So grant me permission to use that. Thank you. All right, y'all. So we're coming to the end of this episode. It's been highs. It's been all highs, all laughs, all joy. Sherhara, I appreciate you. I appreciate how you move. Like I said, I appreciate your thought analysis processes and your communication, and you living in the light of who you are, and all what people want to identify as ugly, you bringing pretty to it. And like I like to say, you take shit, you make fertilizer, and you grow flowers and beauty and plants and greenery, all the greenery. So I want to say thank you for being on the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. Make sure you follow Sherhara. I'll have all the links and everything. I want to thank once again all my listeners all over, sharing the laughs with us. Be looking out for the new merch line coming out in the Q1 of 2021 and all that good jazz. And as always, y'all, when you're moving through the world, whether it's rain or snow, because it is snowing in Texas right now, and all those things, be empathetic of people. Keep in mind that you're not the only one that goes through the hard things. And sometimes a smile when you're walking by somebody, or a wink with these masks on, could be a thing. It could be a thing for somebody. And as always, tell your story, be your own brand, live your truth, and stand in your moment.
All right, y'all. My name is Sherhara, and I am 36 years old. I hope y'all had an amazing time, because I had an amazing time talking to Legina. And the one thing that I want you to take away is research yourself. Research yourself. You just listened to my story as I live my truth and stand in my moment on the LaRae Infinity Let's Talk podcast, season 2.
Season 2, yes, baby. Thank you so much, girl. What?
Let's talk.
Beep. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Okay. Those are the words I have. Okay, you're a competitive person. That's where that finishing the word comes from.
Yeah, I was like, that's what movie did that? Was that what
Mary
movie?
Poppins. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah, that's you sing musicals and stuff, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, see, I
beep. What's something that's impacted your life? Not the old one from church.
Right. I don't know where that came from. Jesus. Oh my God. Oh Lord. I was thinking what really got to my soul.
Let's talk.